NEPM's podcasts are funded by Armbrook Village, offering research-based arts, music, fitness, and lifelong learning programs at their assisted living and Alzheimer's care community in Westfield. armbrookvillage.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, exploring Western Massachusetts' drag landscape as the House of Whores brings its final drag brunch to West Springfield this weekend. And we talk with founder Whores DeVores about the state of the art form in our area and more that the organization is helming for 2025.
But first, looking to make locally sourced wood a part of your new project? We might know a place that can help you out with that.
It's time for a Local Hero Spotlight with Jacob Nelson from CISA, the Local Hero folks. And what's your name?
Jerry Lashway.
We are at Mill River Slab Works in Westfield, and the Slab Works sounds like it could be a bacon place, given that we talk to so many farmers, but it is not bacon that we are talking about today. It's a different type of slab.
And Monty, that's because a huge majority of the acreage on farms here in the 413 is in forests, right? And so wood is another agricultural product, so to speak. And these folks here at Mill River Slab Works are a big part of making good use of that.
And the last name, Lashaway, to me...
I was going to say, Lashway Lumber.
Yeah, equals wood. What is it, Williamsburg, that the Lashaway lumber that I know of lives, but we're here in Westfield, yeah?
Yeah, the sawmill is in Williamsburg, Mass. Started there by my great-grandfather, where it still runs today with my brother and my father. But the new company, Mill River Slab Works, is located in Westfield, Mass.
So tell me how that family relationship of lumber works, how it got started.
Well, my great-grandfather started working over in Amherst and had his own vision to have his own sawmill. Him and my grandfather started together in 1954, and then it has gone down from generation to generation to where my father is still involved and my brother and I are involved, and now our sons are starting to get involved with the family business.
Mm-hmm. Did you grow up knowing you were going to enter the family business, or was there a time where you thought, maybe not wood?
It's actually all I ever wanted to do was be in the family business. I knew from a young age, I think part of it working with my father and working with my brother was just a vision I always had and always wanted to have, and I enjoy it tremendously.
Where are the trees that you're milling coming from? Like, does the lumber yard own acreage to pull trees from?
Yeah, so we actually don't own any of our own land. We're very fortunate out here in Western Mass that we have a lot of private landowners that like to manage their forest for the future. So they do a lot of cutting plans. So pretty much most or all of our timber does come off of private landowners. With Mill River Slab Works and having the slabs that we're more focused on here, a lot of the trees that we use some of them are like more municipality trees. They're coming from colleges, they're coming from towns, they're the big trees on the side of the roads that they have to take down because they're too dangerous to have there anymore. And that's who we're kind of working with now for this side of the business.
So does Lashaway or your family in some way go and take those trees down and go from the beginning to the end of the process, or does the municipality or the university take it down and somehow get it to you?
They're all taken down by them, yes. Look Park, we've been working with them, so they have their own ground crew that'll take their trees down, and we actually take their trees and we actually give them first option to see if they want some of the slabs back. We're currently working with UMass and Smith College on programs like that to try and, again, utilize the trees that they've had on their property for, some of them could be 100 years or so.
So Jerry, slabs, I think of them as big tree cookies, but like, what's a better way?
I think of them as bacon.
It's pretty tables and counters.
So slabs, when we think of it, we're thinking of this, huge, massive tree that we've just taken and we slice all the way through the tree. You're not turning the tree to utilize the boards out of it. We're looking to utilize as wide as we can planks to make the custom tables, coffee tables, dining room tables, desks. So we're looking for as wide as we can get out of the tree, and that's where we kind of start calling them slabs.
What comes first, the boards, the smaller boards, or the slabs? Like, it's like cuts of meat, so yeah. Back to the bacon.
So there is two different ways you would saw a tree. For lumber, we're sawing it one way. For slabs, we're just starting at the top of, say, the round part and just going all the way down through the middle. Again, not worried about the grade of the tree, not worried about what kind of boards we want. We just want to get to that middle of the tree where they're nice wide boards, full width.
What happens to the smaller ones on the outside as you're getting to those bigger widths? How do those get used instead?
So we actually still bring them here. We still dry them. We bring them here. We use them for charcuterie boards, or we have little small bins out there that we kind of have them as discount slabs for a lot of people that want to do their own hobbies with it, their own little projects. Not everybody is looking for that super wide slab. Some people have a vision of just a small piece of wood they could put on their table or on their counter and decorate it. So we try and utilize caramelize the whole log.
Charcuterie boards, you could put some of your bacon on that.
There we go.
There you go.
And they're also, that's something that I've seen you guys marketing as a Christmas gift even. That's kind of a perfect Christmas gift for someone who likes bacon.
It is, yeah.
Or anything to put on a slab.
If you like bacon, you need a charcuterie board.
If you don't like bacon, you still need a charcuterie board.
You're probably going to be entertaining at some point or another. And
People of all disciplines can put food on beautiful wood and eat it.
And we are at Mill River Slab Works in Westfield with Jerry Lashaway Jr., who's part of the Lashaway, I don't want to call it an empire, but it's a local mini empire of woodworking. And this area, apart from like if you go to Lashaway Lumber in Williamsburg, that's like a lumber yard, classic lumber yard. And I love being in lumber yards. But when you walk in here, which is more of a showroom, Khalees and I were first bombarded with the incredible smell of the woods.
Like being in mills is like the best next to like walking in actual forest.
But this feels like a showroom. I don't want to compare it to the big box stores, but similar to that if you've ever gone into a showroom that's showing wood. Is this a new addition to the Lashaway family business?
Yes, this is a new addition. This is something we were very excited to offer, is this showroom type feel. Again, you're, like you say, way different from the lumber mill. The lumber mill, you're out in the elements, you're standing in mud, there's rain and snow, and it's an experience to go to. But to come in here, it's much different. Things you can buy here on site, things you can order. As you come into the showroom, you can actually go out into the main part of the plant where they are crafting the tables and doing other things, and you really can kind of pick it out yourself. So we try and include that as part of the showroom.
And some really good examples of what you can do with the slabs here. Like there's really beautiful shelves, some really cool things to do like with your walls and slabs too, in addition to like tables. If you're looking for inspiration too, in addition to just getting a really beautiful piece of wood, then this is a great place to come.
Yeah, I am a terrible craftsman, but I come into a place like this and I get inspired by all of like the ways that you're using molding. What are these old beams over here? Are those historic?
Yeah, so there's some reclaimed timbers there that we also do mantles here. The one on the top there, that's an old reclaimed beam that we would take, bring it into the back. We could sand it up. We could cut it to size for a customer, and they have a reclaimed mantle.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then you have beautiful, what looks like crown molding here on display, or different types of molding. Those are also being milled here and available for purchase, but from local wood?
Yeah, so not only Lashaway Lumber and Mill River Slab Works, we do have Ponders Hollow Custom Wood Flooring and Millwork, which is our third business. Uh-huh. So Mill River Slab Works is a little bit of a mix of both businesses. Lashaway Lumber, Ponders Hollow, we come together, we make Mill River Slab Works. Mm-hmm. So the millwork is what we have here in stock. So what we're trying to do also have is people that, just need to do a little work on the weekends, maybe replace a window or replace a door. They could come here and they could pick out moldings right out of a rack.
I wish I had known that custom wood flooring was an available option locally when I, during the pandemic, ripped up all of my floors and put new wood down. But that's another thing too. You could get, if you want wood floors, those are available through this as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you can get everything through Mill River Slab Works. Yeah, the wood flooring, the moldings, the desktop, the tabletop, whatever you need out of wood, we can do it. We can get it for you.
Should we go look in the back over here? Because when we walked in, we came in through there's a beautiful front door. We come right into the showroom. Khalees and I went through the side door.
We're like, this is not for us. Let's go straight to where the wood is and be confused.
Backdoor friends are best friends.
Oh, good. Wow.
Backdoor Santa. Oh yeah, but here's another little room off of the showroom here, and this is where all the charcuterie boards live.
Yeah, so a little sample room. And not only what we're trying to show is we make them, we'd love to sell them to you, but we also want people to come in and say, wow, I can make this myself. And we have all the small little pieces of wood out and back. So if it's someone that wants to try something, we'll show you how we make them. We'll show you how we sand them. We show you the finish we use on them and do them yourself. Or if you don't want to, you can buy one here.
That's really cool. I mean, that's a kind of a fun project too for the holidays or whenever. If you want to try your hand at woodworking, low stakes, make a charcuterie board.
There you go. Low stakes, make a charcuterie board.
And you can put steaks on it.
Steak Diane.
Then you can put some nice big steaks on it, some bacon, some vegetables.
You don't have to use it for me.
Yes, you do. Cheeses as well. All right, fine. Cheeses is the reason for the season.
We've actually hosted a few charcuterie board nights here, which was really cool. We cleaned out the back of the plant, had Make Food Lovely, and we set it up here, and we hosted maybe 30, 35 people here, and we all learned how to make beautiful charcuterie boards.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, now let's go to where we were hearing all the slab room and workshop where the saws are going and the giant pieces of wood are and where all the beautiful smells are happening.
Yeah, it is funny. A lot of people, when they first come in, the first thing they notice is the smell. For me, I've been doing this since I was probably 12 years old at the family mill, so most of the time I don't notice the smell. It's just
I feel bad for
ingrained
you.
in me. Yeah.
It's so wonderful that it feels sad that you don't smell it anymore.
I know.
Okay, so Khalees, you were saying that you saw one that looked like it had damage from an invasive species?
It definitely does have damage from an invasive species. So I was talking with one of your other workers about this specifically, and it's this piece of wood that has like all of these, it looks like doodling, but
It's like a maze through the wood.
Squiggly lines.
It's abstract, but it's so cool looking. But it's the trail of the emerald ash beetle. So this is a piece of ash, and that's an invasive species that may very well have killed this tree.
Yikes.
Yeah. I will tell you, one of the things that I love about my job and I love about wood is you see that slab there, you see the characteristics in it. You might not ever see a piece of wood look like that again. We can look at 20 different ash boards and they can all look a little bit different. And still to this day, when we're sawing certain species, I'll get out in the plant and I'll just, only because I visually want to see what they look like, because I know I'm going to see something cool that day.
Yeah.
I love it.
Have you talked with your grandfather, who's been doing this since the 1950s, about how lumber has changed? Has the climate changed things for your family's business? Has invasive species like this changed things for your family's business?
He's not with us anymore.
Oh, okay.
So I guess I wouldn't know too much about that. I think probably what's changed is how, when my grandfather ran the business, it was a little bit more smaller niche markets and it was a little bit more local. The timber would come a little bit closer to the mill where we'd get it from, and you'd actually sell it to companies right here in Springfield and in Chicopee. There was other users around. Now most of our stuff on a larger scale gets shipped out farther away, what we saw. So I'd say that's probably one of the bigger differences that we see from my grandfather's generation to our generation.
Now we're standing in front of these slabs, giant, they look like 4-inch thick slabs that are taken right out of the trunk of a tree. What are something people might use this slab of wood for?
So as much as you talked about bacon earlier, these are actually called cookies.
You put bacon and chocolate chip cookies, I'm
That's
for
right.
it.
So now you guys are going to be hungry. But yeah, these are called cookies. So they're actually sawn the opposite way of the tree. So we're just sawing them the round part of the tree. So you get to use them first. They make great small coffee tables.
You can count the rings. See
You
how
can
old
count the
tree
rings,
is?
see how old the
This has
rings
gotta
are.
be
That's right. You can see how old the
wicked
tree
old.
is. Yeah, this is a pine, a piece of eastern white pine, and yeah, it's got to be I would say 75 to 100 years old. And the farther the growth ring is, that's how fast the tree grew that year. So you see some years the tree, if the growth rings are really tight together, it was a very slow growth year. And then when you see these really wide growth rings like there, that means the tree grew, a quarter of an inch that year, which is a pretty good growth year for it.
It's one of the things I love about working with this kind of lumber, just having it around in your house, is like it actually still looks like a tree.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
all these slabs, like this is as close to it still looks like a tree as you can really get with lumber, because you still got some of the live edge and in this unfinished form, like some of the bark on these things too, and you can decide what you want to do with that if that's something that you're purchasing.
Absolutely. I think you guys noticed in the showroom up against the wall, we actually stood some slabs vertically. Yeah, so and they have the curvature of the tree, so you can again really see like that's a tree mounted on my wall.
Coming up, delving into the drag history of this century with Whores Divorce as their organization House of Whores closes out its drag brunch run with a final show this Sunday.
And more with Jacob Nelson from CISA and Jerry Lashway Jr. and Josh Devon at Mill River Slab Works in Westfield. Josh gives us a little This Old House-style woodworking lesson next.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, homegrown in Hatfield, Massachusetts, and providing energy savings for their customers for over 10 years. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
We are at Mill River Slab Works in Westfield with Jacob Nelson from CISA, the local hero, folks.
What are some of the main tree species that you're getting in and making good slabs out of?
We've met ash, we've met pine.
Yeah, so one of the things that we also do, I think, a little bit different than other companies is we specialize in just using our native trees from right around here. So a lot of soft maple we cut, cherry, American beech, your red oak is really popular, and then obviously eastern white pine.
I think a lot of people that want to work with wood worry about clear cutting and things like that. Can you talk about land management and the importance of taking care of the forests that exist on these properties, be they municipalities or universities or private landowners?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, being a fourth generation business, the forest is very important to us. It's something we've been utilizing for a long time, and we hope to have our future family members be able to utilize it. In Massachusetts, they have really good cutting plans here. Everything has to be approved by a forester, so it does help out to make sure that if clear cutting was to happen, it's done the right way. But in Massachusetts, I don't even believe that's an option. I think it's really just land management for the future of the forest.
Some of that might look like taking out half of the trees so that the trees that remain have more space to grow in a certain way, or like maybe you're managing for sugar maples because you're tapping for a sugar bush and so you're removing some of the other species, but being more selective like that. That's what you're talking about, Jerry?
Yeah, exactly. Having a plan of what you want to do with your forest. Like you said, take out some of the bigger trees, some of the older trees, some of the dying trees to allow that next generation of trees to come through and grow and take over the forest at that point. And then again, down the line, we'll manage it again for another reason, but to keep that growth always there. Let's keep on walking through. So down here into the next section, this is where they're actually working on a lot of the slabs, starting to craft that finished piece of furniture that people want. Not everybody wants that finished table. Some people are coming in here, buying these monster slabs, and we're helping them load them right in the back of their truck, and they're taking them home, and they're making their own tables.
Yeah.
So we don't have to do it all here, but if that's what you want us to do, that's what we'll do.
That's a good option to have.
Yeah, great
I have
option.
all these grand visions of what I'm going to have time to do, and I never have time unless a pandemic hits, and then all of a sudden I have lots of time.
Please don't invite that.
All of our slabs come from Lashwood lumber. They're all kiln dried, and they're actually pre-surfaced, which is nice. And that means that we've taken that roughness off the board and we've lightly sanded them for everybody. So they're a uniform thickness. It makes them a little bit easier to work. Well, it makes it a lot easier for people to work on. Either they're buying the slab, or if we're doing the work, having that pre-sanded slab is a big difference.
Totally. Talk about finishes. What kind of finishes do you guys recommend when you're making products here? Your guy in the background over there is just nodding.
Josh is the one here who
get over here.
does all the finishes. He's researched the finishes. He does a great job with it.
But what are some of the ones that you like to work with, or that you might recommend to people who are doing this woodworking with this raw wood from Mill River Slab Work at home?
Yeah, so if you're just a home DIYer, I would recommend, it's very popular with woodworkers, is Odie's oil. Super popular because it's pretty easy to put on. It's
Garfield's oil, it's just lasagna leftovers.
Yeah, exactly.
John made my favorite 7-layer lasagna cake. I hope he put in plenty of mozzarella.
For most DIY or weekend warriors, you really want to use something that's relatively easy because you want to put it on, you don't want to have too much fuss, and then you want to be done with it.
Yeah.
So Rubio Monocoat is also a really popular one. We're not sponsored by any of these, but if any of them want to, please email us. Those are all finishes that soak into the wood and then they harden. If you want a urethanes are a little tricky because you have to put on a coat, sand between. Our go-to one is a Toto Boat Halcyon. It's really fast drying. You can put on multiple coats in a day, which is really handy in a production setting. But for a homeowner too, it means you can finish your project in one day.
Yeah. What's the benefit versus the Odie's oils and versus the urethanes? What would you use one for over the other?
Any type of urethane or varnish finish like that is going to be a little more durable because you're actually building coats as you put on layers. Whereas an Odie's oil or a Rubio Monocoat is a penetrating type finish, so it soaks in, so it's going to have a more natural feel, and it is going to have water resistance, but it's not going to be as protective as a urethane type finish.
Can you talk about some of the supports for these tables? Because I think I've seen 3 styles so far. If you are weekend warrioring, is there anything you have to be aware of when building a table that's this huge?
Yeah, because these are heavy slabs of wood.
So if you're building a full-size table with wood legs, there's a lot of ways you can do it. Some people just mortise and tenon right into it. Some people just screw directly into it. What we like to do is make it so the tables are easy to take the top off of the table and actually have the base of it separate. So we'll just use metal plates. There's a lot of places you can get them. I feel like now I'm sponsoring, fighting for sponsorship here. There's a company that we like called Bidwell and Iron. They make metal plates that you can attach into the legs, and then you attach them into the tabletop. That way, if you ever need to take the top off of the table, you can unscrew it. And we use threaded inserts for that, which is another thing where if you're a homeowner and this is going to be a permanent installation, you might not do that, but I would recommend pre-drilling any holes before you throw any bolts or screws up into the table.
These are all things I wish I learned pre-pandemic, because I also made myself a giant picnic table, and if I had made a base like this, it would have saved me a lot of trouble. Yeah.
Yep.
The metal plates, all that stuff.
Because
Yeah.
I'm looking. Someone might be looking at a project like this and looking for advice since she's here.
Commit all this to memory.
I'm looking at this slab over here that's got all the holes in it, like all of the natural, like just gaps. Do people ever ask you to fill those too? And how hard is that?
Yeah, so a lot of times, depending on the use. So if it's for a table, you definitely don't want holes and cracks in your table because you're going to have food and stuff fall in there and it's going to be a nightmare. That's how you get ants.
And sometimes other things.
Yeah, so what we will do is we'll clean it out, seal it up, and then epoxy it. It can be clear epoxy, pretty much whatever color you want. We did a walnut coffee table from a round that we did gold epoxy for it. And that turned out really nice, and the client loved it.
What do you notice in the quality of the wood when you're working with something like this versus like cheaper spruce pine fir that you might pick up at a big box store?
The weight.
Well, that was another question I had. Is we're standing next to this slab that's probably 4 feet by 6 or 7 feet. Like, how much does that weigh?
Josh, how much do you think that weighs?
It's a couple 100 pounds. Yeah. It's fairly heavy. It's also about over 3 inches thick. The biggest thing would be something like pine is going to be very light. It's also a softer wood. So a lot of people use pine for maybe an outdoor table or something you don't care too much about if it gets a ding, because being pine, if you drop something, from a foot up, it might leave a dent, whereas a harder wood.
Pine, it dents.
Yeah, exactly. So be careful with that. Harder wood is just going to be a little more durable. Different woods sand differently too. So sycamore sands, it's a little tricky to sand. It will kind of want to retain swirl marks a little easier, so you have to be a little more fastidious with making sure that you're actually taking your time on it. Sanding is a process that you really can't rush. A lot of woodworkers will base it off of you want to move about 1 inch per second. So if you have a table that's 8 feet long by 42 inches wide, you could do the math on that. It's going to take you a bit to sand it, but you really don't want to try and rush that process, because if you have any scratches or dents or swirl marks, those are going to come out with the finish. They might not be noticeable when it's raw, but once you put finish on it, you're going to see any little imperfection. So you definitely take your time with the sanding.
Why does big box store wood weigh less than the wood that you're getting here from the local farms at Lashaway or here at Mill River Slab Work?
Well, again, just going back to that question, it's the type of species that we offer here. I think the biggest difference, it might not be the wood so much as the source of the wood. We are sourcing these trees right here from Western Mass. A lot of them, if we could listen to them, they probably have a really good story to tell us that unfortunately we can't.
That's the Lorax.
That's right.
He's from Springfield.
I'm the Lorax. I speak for the trees.
I would say that's the big difference is you're buying that local product, of something that's been here its whole life.
Are there any points in the year where what's coming in from municipalities and colleges gets a little overwhelming? Like, is there ever like a glut?
Or if there's like a tornado that hits Springfield and all of a sudden there's a bunch of trees down or something like that?
There could be. I don't think we've run into that yet. And it's something we really probably wouldn't have to worry about. I mean, these are big old trees. So, if they sit around a little bit longer on the ground, maybe a beetle will get into it and then maybe it'll make a really cool path like we saw on the other.
Along and
the other
winding
slab.
road.
Yeah. Lead me to your door. And it might just add another element of character to the slab. So yeah, it really wouldn't matter if we did get a lot of logs at one time.
Josh Devon, who's working back here at Mill River Slab Work, making the slabs into awesome things.
Yeah, so one thing that's really cool is with a lot of the slabs that we get in, we're getting in the full log. Whether you want a wider table that we're taking 2 sequential cuts and book matching them, which gives you a really nice look, or you want legs made out of the same tree, the wood is slabbed and dried and surfaced at Lashaway Lumber, and then it's brought here where we do all the finishing. We build it and finish it and we'll deliver it for you. And what's really cool is you can have a table that's made out of the same log. So one log might have been the entirety of your table, which is a really cool thing. That you can say, oh, well, this is one big 13-foot log, and it was cut, and it's all the parts of it are used in this table here.
That's awesome. And children of the 90s, just receiving any kind of log as a gift is a gift. If you've ever watched Ren and Stimpy.
It's love, love.
It's big, it's heavy, it's wood.
Yeah.
It's love, love.
It's better than bad.
It's good.
It's good. Yeah.
Everyone wants a log.
I guess the other thing to offer too is we have worked with homeowners who have taken their own trees down and wanted them sawed, dried, and made into something. So we've been able to do that too, to offer that service.
Yeah. I'm going to make a bat and hit a home run. You ever watch The Natural?
Yeah.
The lightning strikes your tree, turn it into a bat.
Doug, can you make a bat?
There is a local bat making company, and 2025 goals. Go talk to them. Rutto Bats, I think.
When baseball season starts.
Yeah.
But I mean, think of how cool it would be to have company over and tell them that, yeah, see this table here? It used to be the tree that was over there, and now it's here in our house. And one family-owned company did all the stuff, took it down, cut it, did all the finishing, built the table for us. So that's a really neat thing that I don't think a lot of other places you're going to get. If you go to any big box store, you're not going to get, a table made out of the tree that was in your backyard. So that's a really cool thing.
That's Wood by Alice in Chains, spelled differently. Thanks again to Jerry Lashway Jr. and Josh Devon at Mill River Slab Works in Westfield, and to Jacob Nelson from CISA, the local hero folks.
Now, to bring closure to over a decade of drag brunches, we sit with Horse DeVores of House of Horse to talk about the last drag brunch this weekend and the ever-evolving landscape of drag in Western Mass.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering co-op advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. All things must eventually end, and so it is for the storied and remarkable drag brunch with Whores and Friends, which will have its last performance this coming Sunday, December 15th in West Springfield at 2 Weeks Notice Brewing.
House of Whores is a Western Massachusetts-based company with a queer lens and a focus on bringing fun and accessible events to a broad range of audiences. Each show is a curated space for creativity, laughter, and self-expression, making every offering an experience that you will never forget.
Producers, performers, and partners Horse DeVores and Captain Elastico have provided entertainment in Western Mass since 2009, with over a decade of drag and burlesque shows and other offerings like the DeVores Court Charity Drag Competition. Is that still happening?
It's not still happening.
I know, but
it's
it was
on hiatus.
Awesome it was awesome when it was. Drag bingo, Secrets of the Sovereigns, pop culture, trivia, and drag show, comedy shows, fundraisers, private performances for colleges, and more.
And here to talk with us about this show and so much more coming up in the future is the House of Whores founder themselves, Horse DeVores. Welcome.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's talk about how you got into drag in the beginning, because every drag persona has an origin story.
And Horse DeVores, one of the great names of drag.
Thank you.
Because of course, if you're just listening to this and you're wondering about it, you've seen the word hors d'oeuvres before. Nobody knows how to say that if you're a native English speaker that doesn't know French. So turn it into a drag name.
Right? It's also really good branding because you see signs for Horse DeVores everywhere. And so people will message me pictures constantly of, it's Horse DeVores, you're here. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
There's actually just appetizers at that restaurant.
It's like, how are you everywhere? Every performance, every event you're at. Such branding.
Well, I started working at a drag club when I was 18. It was my very first official adult, in air quotes, job. And about a year into me working there, got taken over. The owner had died under questionable circumstances, and his family took over the bar, and they were just the straightest thing since straight came to Straight Town, so they did not know what to do.
Where was Straight Town?
In San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
So we were in San Antonio, Texas at the Saint, which no longer exists, and they were like, we don't know what to do. People stopped coming to the shows as much because they were unsure about what the club direction was going, so they started advertising a appetizer buffet before every show. And I worked the door at the time, so people would call in and they would be like, what time does Horse DeVores come on? And I would be like, well, that's not really it. We'd explain it at first, and then as it would go on and it would keep happening, I'd go, they're on at 10. They're on at 10.
And then did you perform at 10?
And so there we would do switch night, which was when all the non-drag employees would take a drag act and they would bring it to the stage, and all the drag employees would run the horrible jobs that we were doing. And so on that night of the year, I took that name and I ran with it. And then after I came to Western Massachusetts for grad school, I was like, wow, there's not a ton of things here, and Hors d'Ivoires just came out. So we were ready to like bring queer entertainment to the Valley. We were ready to do something outside of the one queer club that existed.
Which was Divas
Which
at
was
the time.
Divas
in
at the
Northampton.
time.
Yeah. What time is this that you come to Western Mass?
I started in Western Mass in 2006. I entered a straight to PhD program at UMass. It was unfulfilling.
If only you had entered the gay to PhD program, it could have been more fulfilling.
I need the queer to PhD. I'm ready for it now.
I feel like many people, this program would be very successful if anybody were to ever launch.
I give you an honorary doctorate as it is.
I'll take it.
When did Divas end? Because that was like the one major queer club in the area for a long time.
It was.
It was like 2005.
Yeah, it was like
13,
14, 15, somewhere in there. Because we were doing burlesque at Divas at that time, and they ended on a Halloween show. The owners just weren't getting the crowds that they wanted to anymore. Our crowds were impeccable.
Yes.
We were packing the house. We were paying those light bills, honey. We were doing everything we could for them, but it just, one show a month isn't enough to keep the space open.
Or two shows sometimes when you would
two
do burlesque
shows, that's
and drag
true.
too.
I mean, I'm curious about this because there's another queer club that is just closed in Northampton after trying to start up another one again. Why is it unsuccessful in Northampton? Are we a victim of our own acceptance that these spaces don't thrive in the same way because maybe people don't feel like they need an exclusively queer space? Or what's your take on that?
You know, I think that there's this attitude about Northampton that it's so queer and that queer things don't need to exist. But, I mean, there's 2 points to this, really. One, Northampton is for yuppies now. Queer people can't afford to live there.
Yeah.
If you look for communities of queer people, look at Greenfield, look at Holyoke, look at Springfield, look at West Springfield. Everyone's moving away from Northampton because it's unsustainable. And, you know, the venue that closed was the size of this recording room, essentially. So it's a really hard business model when the rents are jacked up, all the buildings are owned by like 2 people, and there's not a lot of diversity in the scene. I'm really grateful, though, that some of the Northampton scene has moved to Greenfield. There's a new lesbian-focused bar that's opening, and they're picking up a lot of the shows that would have otherwise been gone. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me.
It's like the last something or other.
The last call, the last resort,
Something-
the last
it might- something like
it's
that.
something like that.
Yeah,
but
it's-
I'm excited that they're picking some of it up because there was this huge influx of like, I'm going to say children because I'm 42 years old. There's this huge influx of children. By that I mean like teenagers, 18 to 21, who were really experimenting with the scene, doing new things, like trying new kinds of shows. They were not always successful. It was not always fun to watch, but there are many beautiful experiences that have come from
But
that.
how are you going to find out if you don't throw the pasta at the wall and see if it sticks?
Exactly.
So, like, seeing that sort of like liveliness and that experimentation is really important to make sure that a scene is thriving. Like, you can have the standbys, but you've got to have people coming in and influencing it with like more energy and more creative juices. So
Absolutely.
it's a beautiful thing to see and to watch. And you're absolutely right. When Majestic opened, well, not when they opened, but when they started doing drag shows, I'm like, how is this going to work? And it did, but they packed the place, but kind of needed twice as many people there to really make it happen. And you just didn't have the space.
Yeah, it's really hard in Northampton to find a space. You know, when we started doing shows, we were at VFW's, which was a very interesting experience on its own because you would walk into the main part of the bar and the like older veterans would be like, what the hell is this? You're like, oh, I'm renting this space upstairs. And, you know, some of them would come to shows if we were doing burlesque. Some of them would definitely not. But, you know, it's a different feel. And so it makes me sad that queer spaces aren't doing as well here as they should. The community needs it. They just don't know how much they need it. And maybe that's because I come from the South where you have to have these communities of people. You have to have this support system because if you don't, it's dangerous.
And
Yes.
we are speaking with Hors d'Ivoires, who will be winding down the drag brunch in Springfield this Sunday at 2 weeks' notice brewing, but has some other interesting, safe, queer spaces and excitement that will be starting up.
Although, as you mentioned that like some of your shows were at VFWs, can you take us on a tour of the places that your shows have been, like the non-private events? Because it's storied and interesting, and honestly, will give people, I feel honestly, it will give people more of an idea of like how hard it is really to find appropriate space for the work that you're doing.
It is really hard. And at the beginning, a lot of places wouldn't work with us. So in early to 2007 or 2008, we reached out to the Northampton Center for the Arts and were told we were too raucous to be in their space. That was under the old executive director.
I'm going to call her.
She was not a fan of me. I guest hosted a circus show for them once, and she was like, the language. Who did you think you were hiring?
My name is Whores Divorce.
But, when we first started here, the first thing we did was a Sunday night at Diva's nightclub. We started a burlesque show there. We had just done a lot of burlesque training with some nationally known burlesque performers. It was $900 for a Sunday night rental from 10 to 12. And we were like, we cannot possibly sustain this. This is crazy. So we went to The Deuce, which was the VFW in Northampton.
The World War II club. That's hence The Deuce.
The World War II club, which I think now is a cheese place.
Yes, it's now cheese.
Yeah. And so we were there for a while, and then they had a management shift, which was wild because the new management was really not as much about us as the old management was. And so then we had to find another space. So we went back to Divas. Then we went to the Florence VFW because we were recruited knowing Divas was closing. Then we were at Slancha Restaurant. We've been at the Blue Heron very, very briefly. 2 weeks notice in West Springfield and Four Phantoms Brewing Company in Greenfield. And for a tiny, tiny time at 10 Forward in Greenfield before they went out of business.
Right.
Which is the new space that's opening up in Greenfield with the name that we can't remember right now.
Yes.
But I'm sure we'll have them on eventually.
I'm pretty sure they're coming on next week.
Oh, okay, good. And we're speaking with Whores Divorce about the last drag brunch, which is happening this Sunday in West Springfield at 2 weeks' notice. We were talking before we began here about drag in general and Northampton's place in the drag world writ large, with RuPaul's Drag Race kind of exploding drag into the general parlance of a society where many people may not have experienced it before that show, and now it's become this many-headed hydra. And some of those folks came through Northampton.
Yes, totally. I mean, RuPaul, problematic as they are often, has really created an economy of drag. And so what you'll see with shows like our brunches is where it used to be very queer focused. Now you get the rabid Drag Race fan who is trying to find something to go to similar to Drag Race but locally available, which inevitably means bridal showers, which is my own personal nightmare because, it's very much like, it's my special day. And you just can't.
We're like, you're a tourist.
Yeah. But, Jujubee came through the Divas nightclub scene. There was a lot of people through Boston right now and through Hartford. It's just really taking this art form that, normally you get paid $50 for an act, and it's increasing the budget you have available for costuming. It's increasing the amount of gigs you can get and the amount that they're paying. So clubs will pay $3,000 to $5,000 for a Rue Girl, but they're still booking local performers at $50 a pop. So I think the goal for performers is to get the kind of acclaim, get the kind of platform to up their booking fee and give them more opportunities. Although I think the market is pretty saturated now. We have 22,000 seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race and all the spin-offs, and it's how much economy is left for people just starting out? You never know.
Coming up, more with Whores Divorce on their last drag brunch happening this Sunday, December 15th. The changes in their own drag and the community they started over a decade ago.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering graduate programs in public affairs, public policy and administration, data analytics, and computational social science. umass.edu/SPP.
We're speaking with Whores Divorce, whose drag brunch will end this Sunday in West Springfield at 2 weeks' notice brewing.
Can you talk about the scene for drag queens versus kings?
Oh, yes. And I will also say the Valley is a little different in this, but in general, in drag world, there is a stark distinction between who will book kings and who will book queens. Kings are widely discriminated against. You might see a king in a show, I think I only have one king. No, I have two kings in my brunch show, but we work really hard to get kings booked. For some reason, and I want to say misogyny, producers look at drag kings and they're like, well, you're just a person wearing pants. That's not drag, but everything is drag. No one tells us to get up and put on this beautiful sweater I'm wearing. I just chose to wear it because this is my drag for the studio today.
I am envious of your sweater.
Thank
it does
you,
have a
thanks.
Black Panther on it. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I should have worn my green cheetah sweater with the two.
We could have been
We could
cats
have coordinated.
out.
We could have coordinated. Cats out.
It's really sad, though, for kings especially, because kings bring this really talented energy, and it takes this play on masculinity. It takes what queens are doing, and it just highlights a different aspect of pop culture, which I think is incredible. So if you're listening to this and you produce drag shows, book more kings. Let them have a place to grow and perform.
We're speaking with Hors Divorce, whose last drag brunch in Springfield will happen at 2 Weeks Notice Brewing this Sunday, the 15th. I'm curious, when we live in an era where drag is being very criticized by certain aspects of society, these drag storybook times that have been happening at libraries have now become highly politicized. What is your view of the political nature of drag as an entertainment form and as a movement?
I think it's really important when we talk about drag as something that's being persecuted to realize that it's really trans people that everyone is talking about.
Yeah.
When they say drag, they mean trans, and they're using drag as a scapegoat to attack trans people. And that is just across the board. And I also know that a lot of straight people don't have access to trans people that they know in their lives, and we're very blessed in this area that we do, to a large extent. And so we all know the difference between being a human who is transitioning versus being a person who is in character, but not everyone does. And so we've been at the end of a lot of backlash for a few things. I had to put security systems in our house. We have to surround our house with cameras. If you find out where I live, I have you on camera. Wow. I am ready. We've had death threats. We got picked up by a conservative blogger a couple years ago who just really pinpointed this campaign against us because there was someone celebrating their birthday at a show who was with their mom. I think looking at drag as this divisive thing is an easy target for people who don't know what they're talking about. They just go, oh, it's a man. That man's wearing a dress. I hate that. I get into my Southern accent when I do these things.
He's not mocking Southern people.
I am a Southern person. But that's the voice that rings in my head when people are saying terrible things about drag performers, because what's the difference between someone dressing up for a movie as the Wizard of Oz versus me dressing up as the Wizard of Oz and doing a 3-minute lip sync act to it? There's no difference to it. A drag reading event is literally someone dressing up as your favorite character from a book and reading it to you.
Yeah.
There is nothing harmful about that. I think the people most harmed by it are the people who have these perceptions as adults that drag makes something inside of them feel a certain way, and they're confused by it, and they're scared of that, and so they need to reject it wholly.
How has your personal drag evolved since your start?
So the pandemic was great for me in that I was furloughed from my day job. So I had lots of time to think about gender and performance and everything. And I went through a personal shift. I started using different pronouns. I started being non-binary. Not started being, but came to the realization I was non-binary. And so when I was looking at my drag, I realized that when I started, I was trying to deal with the feminine stuff. Why was this part of my existence so looked down upon? And so I didn't really pay attention to the masculine stuff at all. And now I'm looking at more of the masculine side of things. I'm bringing in mustaches and facial hairs and, whatever it is to really accelerate that journey of masculine drag, because I've never explored that side of myself either. It's so weird to be a human and just kind of go with the flow. But drag gives you this platform to experiment and do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. And drag queens hate me anyway, so it doesn't matter what I do. They look at my drag because I don't do the normal drag everyone does, and they go, we're painting by numbers today, or things like that. I get little comments all the time. And I'm like, we are painting by numbers, the numbers in my wallet that you don't have.
Drags of several types. What are some trends that you've seen, having worked in drag in the area for into 2 decades? What's overarching about the drag scene in Western Mass now that you notice?
I'm really proud of the drag scene in Western Mass because when I first moved here, it was very stagnant. It was, we are these 6 queens, we control everything, no one else can get in, which is why I started doing my own stuff as well. And now it's much more open and community focused. And like you see people who have no experience coming into shows, getting opportunities to perform, and you see a wider display of gender. You see non-binary people, you see ultra-feminine, ultra-masculine, and the mixtures in between. I really feel like the people coming up in drag right now are turning our ideas of what drag should be on its head and just saying, this is what I do. It's really challenging what it means to be a drag performer because I think initially it was about impersonation. It was about fooling people into thinking you were this performer or this gender or things. But now it's really just about character creation. You have a backstory and you can develop it in any way that you want to. I just want to say, if any of the children are listening, the 18 to 21-year-old children, that, you know, they're doing a great job, and just keep experimenting, keep doing things, even if people tell you that you shouldn't, because those are the people just trying to hold back your art.
We're speaking with Whores Divorce, whose drag brunch will end this Sunday in West Springfield at 2 Weeks Notice Brewing.
Why end the run now?
Well, I don't want to blame white ladies.
But let's.
I do shows with a really queer focus. My shows are for queer people with the welcoming of everyone else. My focus is like, hey, let's go to gay church. Gay church is on Sunday. It's brunch. Let's celebrate together. Let's have a good time. Let's do things that are meaningful to our communities. But since the economy of drag is different now, a lot of the people who have been coming to our shows have been cisgendered white women who just don't understand the rules of the culture. You're doing your act, you're getting your wig pulled, you're getting people who are just being generally rude during the show. And I'm not here to provide a freak show. I'm here to provide a cultural experience, an experience of love and acceptance and fun, and that's just not the vibe of drag brunches all the time. I will tell you, I've looked at my ticket list for this last drag brunch show, and it is queer as hell. So we're going to go out in the way that we came in, like really celebrating with our community. And straight, cisgender white women, we love you and your money. And you can come to any other show but this one.
Including, perhaps, some shows that you have planned in the future. Whores Divorce and House of Whores is going to transition into the world of kind of a game show setting. Are we ready to talk about this yet?
I'm so happy about this because I pitched one to you ages ago.
You
When
did.
I came back from Edinburgh, I saw this one show that was like raunchy charades, and I came back and immediately went to Whores and was like, you have to find a way to do this.
You're also going to incorporate one of my favorite and your favorite game shows, which is
Press Your Luck.
Press Your Luck with the whammies.
Yes. I'm glad we talked about this before because
you
I didn't
couldn't
remember the
it,
name
and then
before.
I did, and now I couldn't remember it, and you did. Press Your Luck.
Yeah, the game show was what we wanted to do. It was our first big show idea in 2006, but it's very expensive and it's very hard to get the components together. And for me personally, it's been very hard to find the right space. But we're basically combining a few game shows into one big experience. So the audience will have chances to play. We're mixing prices right with a little bit of whammy, a little bit of Jeopardy, a little bit of Wheel of Fortune, and some drag and burlesque commercial breaks in the interim. I think it's going to be the perfect marriage of what we do. And I can't wait to just be stupid on stage with it.
I can't wait to see it.
I'm so excited about it.
And one other thing that's happening after this drag brunch this Sunday is the Bon Appetit Burlesque at the Jupiter Club in East Hampton. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah.
Especially because burlesque left and then came back. So,
Yes.
like, this is like the prodigal burlesque.
Yes, we did the show for a decade. I get tired of shows after about a decade.
That's a good long time.
And it was great. We do body positive, fat positive, queer positive, joyful performances around the art of the striptease. We used to just do neo-burlesque, which is weird, story-based, shtick-based stuff. So you might see like Bert and Ernie in a bathtub figuring out how they're going to get clean and taking off all their clothes.
You might see a nun in a pinhead mask covered in pork.
People still ask me if this person's coming back so they don't buy a ticket. She had actual pork chops that she would strip off during the act. It was so disgusting.
It was amazing.
But amazing. And that's kind of the beauty of burlesque, is that people sometimes think they're coming to see the stripping part, but it's really not about that. It's about the story, it's about the laughter, it's about the critique and the comedy. also about the stripping, but a very minor part of it. So our Jupiter Club show, we've just started the revival. We're going to do 4 shows in this upcoming year. And our first one is bringing in performers from Connecticut, Rhode Island, Boston, just all around from our huge cast over the times.
And that's happening in East Hampton on January 18th to ring in the new year with some burlesque and Whores Divorce. Well, congratulations on a great run with the Drag Brunch.
Thank you.
And I'm really excited about all of the things that you'll be bringing to the Valley in 2025 and beyond.
Yes, come and see us. We do fun stuff. And if you don't come and see us, then we can't do fun stuff.
You can get tickets and info for the last Drag Brunch at House of Horrors, that's HORS.com, where you can also see the other events they're bringing to the 4 counties. Nikki Giovanni, the poet and leading figure of the Black arts movement, passed away this week at age 81. And before we end the show today, Khalees, she was someone who had a major impact on your life and work.
Okay, you're gonna make me cry. She was such an incredibly huge impact on the things that I love about poetry and the way that I write poetry. And you can read a lot of that in my first book. Please don't go find my first book. But like in honor of like the small bit that she really meant, I got to see her read this poem at Big Ears, so I'm going to read it here.
Which is a big music and arts festival that we go to every year.
And she was amazing at it, and it was the last time that I got to see her live. The poem is called Allowables. I killed a spider, not a murderous brown recluse or even a black widow, and if the truth were told, this was only a small sort of papery spider who should have run when I picked up the book, but she didn't, and she scared me, and I smashed her. I don't think I'm allowed to kill something because I am frightened. If you haven't read Nikki Giovanni, everything is worth it. Read her Odes to Tennessee, and Ego Trip, and you can hear her speaking in her own voice, in her own pace. But just if you have not discovered her work, go fix it.
Thank you, Khalees. On the next Fabulous 413, we head to Northfield, where the Valley players are gearing up to bring seasonally appropriate Shakespeare into the tap rooms for their latest Bard in the Bar event.
And we're exploring a work based on a memoir of one woman's experience during the first half of the 20th century as a Jew in Eastern Europe that you can hear performed at Bombix on December 12th with Mike Friedman.
And this is the music that you're listening to right now. Plus, we'll have Mr. Universe on a special Wednesday edition talking about the president-elect's pick for the head of NASA, as well as an exciting new galaxy with an adorable moniker.
Here's a hint. It's like a hat.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.